So what we're going to do now is we're going to create just a demonstration to create a series of gesture drawings of the human skeleton. And just quickly in talking about gesture drawing before we begin, gesture drawing ultimately is just a quick loose line drawing. If we have enough time, we try to add a little bit more to it, but essentially it's just a continuation of the elements of drawing. So obviously we begin with a mark. We will move on to our line, and it's very helpful then to get to a point where we can have both geometric and organic shapes. And if we have enough time, we can go back into it and try to create a little bit of form, adding line with inside the structure. I feel it's really key when you're doing gesture drawing to make sure that you keep your line very light, because in the beginning stage, you're trying to work as quickly as possible, and you want to make sure to allow yourself the opportunity to make changes if need be. In gesture drawing, it's the act of creating a drawing using line to quickly capture rhythm, action, and form. This is how many artists gather their ideas and create their concepts. Ultimately, an artist might do many versions, gesture drawings of an idea before they come up with their final creation or their final solution. So for the most part, most gesture drawings are done within a minute, 2 minutes, very quickly. It's just meant to capture an idea, capture character. You want to have rhythm, you want to have expression. If the figure is thrusting with power, pushing off, you want to capture all those elements in character to give your drawing life. Sometimes the gesture drawings can be more exciting than the finished product. So now what I'll do is I'll just begin here. I'll do a little bit more drawing, a little bit less talking, but I'll just try to point out a couple of things as we move along. But again, we're doing gesture drawing just of the human skeleton. I will try to do 5 or so on the page and try to fit them in some sort of a composition, as if maybe the grouping was sitting around or standing around in maybe outside of an event or in a classroom, socializing. It could be anything. But anyway, here we go. So I will just, now I'll just draw. So I'm going to very quickly, let's get in a hint of the thoracic cage, the rib cage, and a hint of the pelvis, and we'll have just quick loose lines for the feeling of the legs. And I'll go back and add detail as we're moving along. And indication of a head. So vertebral column connecting. Great trochanter, femur, tibia and fibula, then a hint of the foot. And we'll add the other leg. And it's back view, so we'll add a scapula, another scapula, humerus, just an indication of a hand, back of the head, and actually let's change this arm and we'll have this arm coming back too instead of up, just to show how easily and quickly we can change things if we want. And an indication of a hand. And a little thickness to there. And we can make this a little longer and then get a little indication that it's on the ground. Sacrum would be in here. Back of the pelvis. So it's really important when you're doing this to think of the structure of the bones. So we know that the shaft of the bones is always thinner and it always gets wider as it approaches the joints. So I want to make sure I capture that character while still having movement. So now if we look back at this again, we see line, we see a little bit of a shape here, and coming down, and I've tried to add lines inside. Some lines you may look at and use, other lines you may not, you may disregard. You try to pick out the lines that work for what you see. So I'm trying to engage the viewer a little bit by allowing them to pick out and choose some of their lines. So now we'll add a second figure. So maybe let's add a figure and profile, lateral view. So rib cage and pelvis. And an indication of the legs. We'll have an arm here and up here. And back in there. And just a quick gesture of a head. So it didn't matter in just a few seconds. We have, it's kind of a stick figure, but the lines are flowy and they're soft. Now I'll start going in and adding a little bit more detail. So here we have the thoracic cage, the rib cage. And we want to connect the vertebral column to the pelvis. So you can see the importance of understanding anatomy. And we have the great trochanter in here. And here is the femur. And then we have the tibia and the fibula coming down. And we have the wedge shape of the foot, wedge shape. We add the other leg. Have it a little bent so we have a little more character and expression. And now we have the humerus. And let's just do a little gesture of a hand. And we can have a little hint of the scapula in here. And the cervical vertebrae. And then just a little indication of the skull. Let's have the other arm maybe kind of hanging down on the far side, the back view. And it can be coming back through here somewhere with another expression in here. So I keep my lines light, and some of the ones that go underneath where I want to have a clear definition, I can make them a little stronger, and other ones I keep very soft and very loose. So now, maybe we'll stick someone in here just for kind of fun. We'll do one with foreshortening. So we'll have the rib cage in here, and the pelvis in here, but we're going to have this leg coming kind of toward us and back, and we'll have this gesture of the leg coming. Actually, let's extend it here and out so it looks like it's really pushing off. It can be, this arm can be coming down, and we'll give a little indication of a head maybe looking down or that way. So very quick gesture. Just trying to get some expression and character, but not a lot of detail. So now we'll go back. So we're going to add the sternum in here, then the rib cage. And if you notice, this rib cage has shape. It started with a line, but now it's shape. And we'll connect the rib cage to the pelvis. Rib cage to the pelvis down in here. And then coming out, we have the head of the femur, the great trochanter. And we'll have the femur through here. And in this case, we have the femur, and we're going to have it connecting in here. And I'll have it again, foreshortening through here. So we have the tibia and the fibula coming down here, the hint of the foot coming toward us. And we have the clavicles, and in here is the humerus, and the lower arm can come down in here, and maybe we'll have a gesture of it putting its finger onto the ground. And this arm, we have the humerus, thinner in the middle, wider as it approaches the joints. And maybe we'll have it turned down like maybe it's grabbing something or pulling something. And there we have the knee. And we can have the foot pushing off. And an indication that it's on the ground. So we want to just use the line. And here, indication of line. And now we have 3 figures. So now, how about, so we can have a little bit of composition. So maybe we'll stick a figure behind. And so we did a back view, we did a side view, a front view. What could we do here that would be a little different? Maybe, thinking of composition, maybe we'll have something kind of flowing this way. So how about we have, or actually, how about we have this figure kind of bent over, and in there, then a pelvis, and this leg coming down here. We can have the other leg coming up in here. So maybe we have a little hint of some movement. Maybe this guy's getting ready to take off and run. So rib cage, gesture of a head. So we have the rib cage in there, then we connect the cervical, or the vertebral column, and then the pelvis. And in here we have the great trochanter and the femur, and the lower leg would be coming in here and pushing off behind that pelvis. We have the other leg, the other femur, coming out. Let's make sure this is in front and this is behind. And this leg needs to be in front of the femur. Okay, so the other femur's out, coming back, and the foot pushing off. So we'll give that gesture, an indication of that. Then we have the humerus. And then we have the other humerus in here. And the other arm pushing out forward, and have it bent down with some expression in the hand. So, quick gesture, and now we have another figure. So we have 4. We need to add one more figure in here so we can get to our 5 figures. Maybe I'll have something turned in this way. So let's, or actually maybe, what would be more interesting if we go in here? Maybe we'll have a kind of a floating figure in here. So we'll have this in the pelvis. So we're going to have our rib cage in here. So we're making a shape, kind of an egg-shaped oval. Then we have the pelvis. And we have the femur coming back in here. And we'll have the the other femur coming out in here. And let's have an arm going up. Or actually, how about we have it coming here and back? So we have a little different mood. So here's the head. We'll have this hand coming back kind of over the head. And actually, let's change. So you can see how you can change things on the fly. We're going to change this femur to come back in here so that it has a little more balance for this composition. And we'll have the foot in there. And we'll go ahead and use this idea to have the other leg coming out this way. So remember, the joints are narrow in the shaft, and they get wider as they approach the joints. The foot is kind of wedge-shaped from profile, so we're going to capture that feeling. Have this femur in here. We're going to make sure it goes behind this head, so we want to make an indication of that head a little clearer. And this other leg in here. So this is the general idea of gesture drawing. So we can make lots of changes as we go. We can, if we make mistakes or things that don't seem to have a nice flow. In fact, this is probably poor compositional idea in here. So I probably would then actually extend this so that it comes back in here into the space better, and have this in here coming down. And that would be a little bit more interesting. So we're changing the rhythm and flow of that. So I keep my mistakes. I let my mistakes show. When we get into shading this a little bit and trying to create just a little bit more three-dimensional form, some of those lines get cleaned up and disappear. But in the meantime, the gesture drawing is a very quick drawing where you're just trying to capture the feeling. When you look at the human skeleton, it's really complex. So from a distance, you have to look at it, simplify everything down into a simple shape using line, and then from that simple shape, you can start adding line back into the shape to create form. Most people struggle in the very beginning because there's so much information, and what do you pick and what do you choose and what do you eliminate? This is an example, just a quick little demonstration of what can be done through the use of gesture drawing. And this is gesture drawing of the human skeleton, which we will be working on at this time.